Another Simple Favor contains a number of brutal deaths that occur over the course of its twisty narrative. The Prime Video thriller is a sequel to 2018's A Simple Favor, which was directed by Paul Feig from a screenplay by Jessica Sharza, adapting the 2017 novel of the same name by Darcy Bell. Feig and Sharza reunited for the sequel, which features returning characters including Emily, Blake Lively, Stephanie, Anna Kendrick, and Emily's now ex-husband Sean, Henry Golding, alongside newcomers such as Emily's fiancé Dante, Michelle Morone, his mother Portia, Elena Sophia Ricci, and Stephanie's literary agent Vicky, Alex Newell. Almost all of these characters are in mortal peril at one point or another throughout the movie, and nearly half a dozen of them die by the ending of Another Simple Favor. While all their deaths are violent, they have varying levels of brutality given the fact that they all have different MOS and there are a variety of perpetrators. All of this is in addition to the death by suicide of a swim coach, which takes place before the events of the story but is shown in flashback and haunts Stephanie throughout, because she feels that she is responsible. Agent Irene Walker. Played by Taylor Ortega. Taylor Ortega as Irene sitting at a cafe table in Another Simple Favor. One of the many characters who died during 2025's Another Simple Favor is FBI agent Irene Walker. Although she is first introduced as a mysterious figure who is seemingly trailing Stephanie, she quickly reveals herself to be a bumbling agent on the trail of Emily's con artist Aunt Linda, Allison Yanni. She offers very little real protection to Stephanie, to the point that she loudly calls her name while attempting to take her to a nearby safe house. Almost immediately after doing this, she is stabbed in the back by Emily's long-lost identical triplet Charity, also portrayed by Blake Lively. Irene's death, while violent, is the least brutal of the murders in Another Simple Favor. This is because, like all of Irene's scenes in the movie, it contains quite a few notes of comic relief. It also occurs very quickly, as it is designed to intentionally disorient Stephanie, who is overwhelmed so much by the sudden development that she finds herself holding yet another bloody knife that makes her seem even more suspicious in spite of the fact that she is not responsible for any of the many deaths that take place during her time attending Emily's wedding in Capri. 4. Margaret McLandon. Played by Elizabeth Perkins. Allison Yanni as Linda holding on to Elizabeth Perkins as Margaret while she waves in Another Simple Favor. As Linda and Charity, who she kidnapped as a baby and then raised to participate in her various cons and murders, mow their way through the cast, one of the victims that Linda herself claims is her sister Margaret McLandon, the mother of triplets Hope, Faith, and Charity. Although Margaret is showing signs of dementia, she has enough clarity while in Capri to both tell Stephanie about Linda's long-ago betrayal and then inform Linda that she has done so. This leads Linda to smother her with a pillow in revenge, preventing Margaret from telling anybody else about her dark past. Margaret was a character from the original movie. The murder itself is not particularly brutal in terms of on-screen violence, because it does not involve any blood. However, it is considerably more shocking than Irene's death, because Margaret was a character from the original movie, previously portrayed on-screen by Jean Smart, and thus is more of a part of the fabric of the franchise, even though she has always played a supporting role. Another more brutal element of this murder is the fact that Linda has murdered her own sister, emphasizing the franchise's overarching themes of the strained relationships between siblings spilling over into passion, violence, and more. 3. Dante Varsano. Played by Michelle Morone. Michelle Morone as Dante Varsano soulfully staring in Another Simple Favor. The death of Emily's new husband Dante on their wedding night could perhaps have been foreseen. The wedding featured the presence of the Varsanos' rival crime family, the Bartolos. Although they were invited in order to foster peace, guns had already been drawn earlier during the event for a situation as minor as Stephanie taking a video and accidentally capturing the presence of a Bartolo family member. This is why his death from multiple gunshot wounds, which turned out to have been inflicted by Charity, was seemingly potentially mob-related, muddying the waters as to the identity of the true culprit. Dante's death is brutal because of the aftermath rather than the way it is meted out. Although it is most likely the gunshot wounds that killed him, he falls into a shed that contains some of the wedding fireworks, which are lit by the spark from another gunshot. The fireworks then explode around him, presumably scorching his body beyond recognition, though his corpse is never shown on screen after the fact. The intensity of his dramatic final moments is further compounded by the fact that the fireworks around him were meant to be celebrating his nuptials rather than marking his death. 2. Sean Townsend. Played by Henry Golding. Sean Townsend, whose life has seemingly fallen apart entirely since the events of the original movie, is the first of the Another Simple Favor characters to perish over the course of the story. In fact, his death is even implied by the opening sequence, which begins in Media's residential with Stephanie live-streaming while under house arrest and proclaiming her innocence. It is not revealed until later that, when she refers to the death of Emily's husband, she is actually talking about Dante, as both of Emily's husbands have died by the time the movie catches up with that introductory moment.